What happened to Jerusalem and Judah following the capture and exile of Zedekiah? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 2 Kings on Walking Through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 2 Kings chapter 25, verses 8 to 21. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to 2 Kings chapter 25, verse 8. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 2 Kings chapter 25, beginning at verse 8. And in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. He burned the house of the Lord and the king's house, all the houses of Jerusalem, that is, all the houses of the great, he burned with fire. And all the army of the Chaldeans, who were with the captain of the guard, broke down the walls of Jerusalem all around. Then Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away captive the rest of the people who remained in the city, and the defectors who had deserted to the king of Babylon with the rest of the multitude. But the captain of the guard left some of the poor of the land as vine dressers and farmers. The bronze pillars that were in the house of the Lord, and the carts and the bronze sea that were in the house of the Lord, the Chaldeans broke in pieces and carried their bronze to Babylon. They also took away the pots, the shovels, the trimmers, the spoons, and all the bronze utensils with which the priests ministered. The fire pans and the basins, the things of solid gold and solid silver, the captain of the guard took away. The 2 pillars, 1 sea, and the carts which Solomon had made for the house of the Lord, the bronze of all these articles was beyond measure. The height of 1 pillar was 18 cubits, and the capital on it was of bronze. The height of the capital was 3 cubits, and the network and pomegranates all around the capitals were all of bronze. The 2nd pillar was the same, with a network. And the captain of the guard took Sariah the chief priest, Zephaniah the 2nd priest, and 3 doorkeepers. He also took out of the city an officer who had charge of the men of war, 5 men of the king's close associates who were found in the city, the chief recruiting officer of the army who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city. So Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, took these and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. Then the king of Babylon struck them and put them to death at Riblah in the land of Hamath. Thus Judah was carried away captive from its own land. We have thus far been looking at the downfall of the nation of Judah following the death of Josiah. This downfall occurred because the people of Judah would not put away their idolatry, just as the nation of Israel wouldn't, a sin they were punished for just over a century earlier. Yes, Josiah, the last righteous king of Judah, brought Judah a reprieve, but it was short-lived, for following Josiah's death, Judah returned almost immediately to her evil ways, leading quickly to their captivity. We discussed that the first wave occurred in about 605 B.C. during the days of Jehoiakim, when Nebuchadnezzar, fresh off his victory against the Egyptians at Carchemish, besieged Judah and made Jehoiakim their vassal king. People taken captive during this wave included Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Jehoiakim rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar in about 597 B.C., leading to the 2nd siege of Jerusalem and more people, like Ezekiel, taken captive. Jehoiachin, who had become king in this siege upon the death of his father, was also taken to Babylon, and we'll find out what happened to him, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. Zedekiah, Jehoiachin's uncle, was made king of Judah by Nebuchadnezzar and was expected to remain loyal and pay tribute. However, he allied himself with Egypt and rebelled as well, resulting in a 3rd siege of Jerusalem. This was seemingly the worst of them all, for Nebuchadnezzar wanted to finally end this scourge that he had been facing for almost 20 years by this point. Thus, he was not wanting to capture the city and install a new king. He wanted to destroy the city and wipe it off the map. The siege took 3 years to accomplish, which resulted in severe famine, but the Babylonians finally did breach the city walls in Jerusalem in about 586 BC, the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. Now Zedekiah and some of the men of war managed to escape by night, but were soon captured in Jericho and brought before Nebuchadnezzar, who was stationed in Riblah. Zedekiah got to watch his sons be killed before his eyes were put out and being taken captive to Babylon, where he would die in prison. All of the events surrounding Zedekiah seemingly took about a month to complete, for it wouldn't be until the 5th month that Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, came to burn the city of Jerusalem down. And since Nebuzaradan is not mentioned among the Babylonians who breached the wall anywhere else in Scripture where this event is recorded, we can fairly easily assume that Nebuzaradan was sent by Nebuchadnezzar after the punishment of Zedekiah to do this very thing. He set fire to the temple of Solomon and the king's house and all the houses of Jerusalem. Seeing as how Jerusalem sat on a mountain, I'm sure a fire of this magnitude could be seen for miles. Those people who were left in the city, for remember the poor had been left there back in 597 BC, were now taken captive. This time, though, the captives weren't confined to Jerusalem alone, but to the rest of Judah as well. Left in Judah, though, were some of the poor of the land who would be used to farm the land and tend the vines. So while this passage explicitly states that captives were not only taken from Jerusalem, but Judah as well, there is still a remnant left behind by Nebuchadnezzar in Judah, just as Israel had a small remnant left behind by the Assyrians too. This represented the 3rd wave of Babylonian captivity and also marks the end of Judah as an independent nation at this time, for her capital had now fallen and no new kings would be introduced to rule her as even a semi-independent nation from Babylon. Before the temple was set ablaze, though, all that was left in it of any value that hadn't been taken 11 years earlier was now taken and either kept as trophies or melted down. These would have included all the utensils used in sacrifices of the temple, the fire pans and the basins, the bronze sea, and the carts that Solomon made. They would have also included the 2 bronze pillars of the temple that had been made by Solomon as well. And so, with all of the valuable materials stripped from the temple, all that was left was the wood and stone, allowing the structure to be set on fire. Think about that for a moment. 380 years earlier, Solomon began building this structure, and the Lord placed his name there. And yet Judah went off into idolatry, served other gods, and so the Lord removed his name for a time from there and allowed his temple to be burned. In actuality, though, God was not harmed by this action, for the Lord does not dwell in temples made with hands. Solomon's temple was a grand structure, but in the end, it was just a structure, and because of her sin, the Lord allowed it to be destroyed. Staying until the very end, though, was Sariah the high priest, as well as another priest named Zephaniah, and 3 doorkeepers. They were captured, along with a small contingent of the king's court, who remained and brought to Nebuchadnezzar, who was still in Riblah. There they were all executed, bringing an end to the temple worship in Jerusalem, as well as the kingdom of Judah. But as we noted already, the house of David is not extinct, and neither is the house of Aaron, for we will see priests again return in the days of Ezra. God's providence was protecting a remnant of these people for future use, but for the time being was punishing Judah for her sins. In the next lesson, we will cover the 4th wave of the captivity before closing our verse-by-verse study of the book of 2 Kings with what happened to Jehoiachin. So we invite you back for that. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 2 Kings chapter 25, verses 22 to 30, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.